First Lady Melania Trump has revealed her son Barron previously had the coronavirus. The First Lady says the 14-year-old contracted it around the same time that both she and President Trump were diagnosed, but that he has since tested negative. Meanwhile, President Trump continues to ramp up his campaign schedule after being cleared to return to public events. CBS News' Weijia Jiang is at the White House with the latest.
First Lady Melania Trump is opening up tonight about her son's COVID-19 diagnosis and her own battle with the virus, writing, "My fear came true when 14-year-old Barron Trump tested positive," adding, "Luckily, he is a strong teenager and exhibited no symptoms." Mrs. Trump revealed she had body aches, a cough, and felt extremely tired, choosing a more natural route in terms of medicine, opting more for vitamins and healthy food to help her recover. Asked about his son, President Trump did not give any further details.
Barron's fine.
Tonight, the president is making his first campaign stop in Iowa since January. For a state that wasn't supposed to be competitive, the race is now tied, even though Mr. Trump won by nearly 10 points in 2016. The visit comes as Iowa surpassed 100,000 coronavirus cases this week and has logged a recent surge in hospitalizations.
And I'm in such perfect shape.
Even after catching COVID-19 himself, the president is holding one packed event after another. This billboard points to the site of tonight's rally. An estimated 10,000 people are attending, defying federal guidelines limiting large gatherings in central Iowa to 25. With Biden leading nationwide and in most swing states, President Trump must make up ground with seniors, a group he won by 7 points in 2016, but now finds himself splitting evenly with Biden. Mr. Trump is also struggling to gain the support of suburban women, which may have prompted this direct plea in Pennsylvania on Tuesday.
Suburban women, will you please like me? Remember? Please. I saved your damn neighborhood, okay?
With the election just 20 days away, early voting records are already being broken. Voters headed to the polls Wednesday in Texas, Virginia, Georgia, and Tennessee. CBS News' Ed O'Keefe spoke to some people in Virginia who say they're all in for Joe Biden.
Ladies and gentlemen, the polls are now open.
Nationwide, there are long lines and hours-long waits as more than 14.9 million early votes are in, shattering records from 2016. Nearly 2 million in Florida, about 1.2 million in Michigan, at least another million each in California and Texas, nearly 743,000 over the first 2 days in Georgia, and over 1 million here in Virginia. Among those in line at this suburban location are women fed up with President Trump.
I don't like the way Trump acts. You know, he's always pumping his fist. And the pandemic, he hasn't done what he should have done. He stayed in a couple days and bullied his way out of the hospital.
Currently, Joe Biden leads the president nationwide by 18 points among women with college degrees. That's 11 points better than Hillary Clinton did with them 4 years ago.
I'm part of their Team Joe. I get probably 15 texts a day.
The Biden campaign is seeking out women voters with ads like this one, starring a Wisconsin mother concerned about the pandemic.
But I think what's been really hard is that there's just no end in sight.
Polls show Democrats are more likely than Republicans to vote early. Dana Kogar took the whole day off from work, just in case the lines were too long.
I felt anxious to get my vote in. I think the lines are going to be maybe even worse on November 3rd.
For more, Weijia Jiang and Ed O'Keefe join me now. Weijia, I'll start with you. The president has been on a heavy travel schedule this week. He's already been to Iowa, Pennsylvania, and Florida, and he plans to visit North Carolina. So what do his prospects look like in these states now compared to 2016?
Well, our CBS News Battleground Tracker shows that the former vice president is up in Pennsylvania by about 6 points, but the other 3 states are really toss-ups, especially Florida and North Carolina. But we can report that in Iowa, it looks like a tie, and that's really the contest that is a little surprising here because the president won. He beat Hillary Clinton in 2016 by nearly 10 points. And so the campaign did not pay particular attention to Iowa for the first half of this year. In fact, the last time the president was there for a campaign stop was in January, but he is there tonight holding a rally because they recognize that it is up for grabs, which is not something they expected. As for the other three states, these are battleground states, so it's no surprise that they're going to fight until the end for them. But again, it's really Iowa that is a little unexpected.
Yeah, very interesting, and perhaps telling that the president held a Make America Great Again rally at a cargo hangar in Des Moines there. Iowa is currently seeing a surge in coronavirus hospitalizations, and the state recently surpassed 100,000 cases. So is the president's campaign taking any new precautions at large gatherings, especially since the president himself has been infected with COVID-19, Weijia?
In short, no. They have not added any additional measures, as we have seen all week, and including in Iowa tonight. It's a massive crowd. About 10,000 people were expected to attend tonight, standing shoulder to shoulder, and many of them do not wear masks. And so, this is something that he is going to have to answer to. But the campaign says, there haven't really been big outbreaks as a result of these events, which is not entirely true. In fact, we just learned yesterday that in Minnesota, about 22 cases were linked to different campaign events in September, although we should mention one case there was also linked to a Biden event. And so, moving forward, it doesn't look like Mr. Trump is going to stop holding these rallies anytime soon. And again, the campaign isn't revising anything, just warning people that, they are attending at their own risk. And they do have some measures in place, like they take temperatures and they do hand out masks. But Lana, when you're talking about that many people packed together and not enforcing the use of masks, it's easy to understand why Dr. Anthony Fauci said these rallies are just, quote, asking for trouble.
Ed, we saw in your piece that you've been speaking with a lot of suburban female voters that are interested in casting their ballots for Joe Biden. What's been the Biden campaign strategy to energize this specific block of voters, and do they think that this is the key for their electoral win?
It's certainly part of it. Look, I mean, part of the strategy is just to not do what the president's doing. And that's been the case since the pandemic began. Hold smaller events, don't hold them at all, or hold them virtually. Don't put yourself, your staff, your supporters at risk. And continue to drive home the point that the president is the one that's mismanaging the situation right now, that he didn't cause the pandemic, but he's caused the response to it across the country. Talking to people in line here, look, we're in Fairfax County, Virginia, predominantly Democratic area. This is an early voting site that opened just today, expanding the early vote options for Virginians, just with just under 3 weeks to go. I'm losing count. Too many numbers. But these people were willing to wait in line for hours because they understand. Yeah, they understand that to vote now, to get it done, is important, is essential. One woman told us she was anxious about the possibility that her vote wouldn't be able to get cast on November 3rd, that the lines would be just too long. But I can tell you, the line was out this door, down the block, out onto the main drag, and then some, and that was just on day one. And this is what we're seeing in Georgia, in Texas, in California. We're going to see it in all sorts of other states as the early voting in-person option opens up here in the coming weeks. And, we'll see if that sustains itself until November 3rd, or if it wanes a little bit and comes back up. But it's telling that, at least at this location, many of those in line were the women who might have supported Republican candidates in the past, but this time are supporting Joe Biden, saying they're just fed up with the way the president's been handling things.
Ed, I see behind you what looks like several young women, but we have heard both President Trump and Joe Biden focus on courting the nation's senior citizens. Have you been speaking with and seeing many senior citizens there, or have they really been sending in their ballots?
Well, actually, what we did see a lot of earlier today was senior citizens who delivered their absentee ballot in person and dropped them off inside. In some cases at this location, they allow the elderly and the disabled to pull up in their cars, and they have curbside service. The voter, the vote taker, or the person running the poll site inside, comes out to the car, gets their information or gets the ballot from them, brings it in, verifies with their license that they're eligible and that they're supposed to vote in Virginia, brings back the license to them, says, you voted, you're done. And they never had to get out of the car. So that's a bit of a premium service, if you will, at least at this location. But it's designed to encourage and to allow senior citizens to vote. And yes, here, certainly down in Florida, we saw this week a lot of the outreach directly to senior citizens. There'll be a big factor in places like Pennsylvania, that competitive congressional district in Maine that splits its electoral votes from the other one, and several states out west as well, like Arizona. So both of these campaigns understand they've got to reach them. The president trying to make up lost ground, and Biden trying to hold on the advantage he seems to have built and that lead that he's cut into that the Republicans usually enjoy among older voters.
So interesting to see how not only the campaigns are tailoring themselves to the pandemic and to the different voting populations, but also how electoral officials are doing that as well. All right, last question for both of you. President Trump and Joe Biden will be holding dueling town halls Thursday night, which was supposed to be the night of the second presidential debate. The president will be in Miami. Biden will be in Philadelphia. I'm wondering what you're both going to be watching for. Weijia, I'll start with you.
So, Lana, this is a really important night for President Trump. It's the first time we will hear directly from him when he will take questions about his own diagnosis. So I really want to see how he plans to explain to the American public why he is equipped to get us out of this pandemic when he himself has caught it, and why he continues to spread some misinformation, for example, claiming that he has immunity when we have learned from medical experts that there's not enough data to make a conclusion about immunity. He's still going to have to answer a lot of questions about this virus. And it's also one of his last chances to make his case. I mean, instead of just going after Joe Biden, he has to get into some specifics about what he plans to do to make life better for people. And so it is always interesting to see him interacting with voters. We know that they will also be asking questions in addition to a moderator. And so, you know, he is in the hot seat here. It is one of his final closing arguments about how he plans to, build up the economy, fix the coronavirus situation, and really make the next 4 years different. And it is tricky for him, by the way, because he has been doing so many rallies, and a lot of them are starting to sound the same. So can he distinguish himself as a candidate and not just, the president holding these rallies, saying the same thing on repeat?
All right, Ed, what are you looking for?
Look, if you're someone who's not watching the baseball playoffs or Thursday night football and you want to tune in, you certainly have options tomorrow night. And if you're Biden, you don't want to do any harm. Because if you're maintaining the lead that you seem to right now in all the various battleground states, even in places like Iowa, as we mentioned, all you've got to do tomorrow night is somehow state your case, remind people why it is you're in this race, remind them, as he says, that you're the antithesis of the president, that you do things differently, especially when it comes to the pandemic and rebuilding the economy, and hope that there aren't some questions thrown at him that would somehow knock him off his game. The one big one to watch, given this week, he still hasn't fully answered the question of where he currently stands on the thoughts of expanding the Supreme Court. If we get a fuller answer from him on that as the Supreme Court confirmation hearings continue, that would make news. Perhaps other issues related to his family that the Republicans have been trying to raise this week, or perhaps just something about his age and his ability to hold office. I was telling that a few people today, at least one woman I remember vividly saying something about his age and saying, look, he's older and I may not like the idea of somebody being that old being president, but he's better than what we've got. Let's see if he gets a question about that tomorrow night as well.
All right, we'll be watching for all of that. Weijia Jiang, Ed O'Keefe, thank you.